Who is that ugly dude? What is up, Dirt Spotters? What the heck is going on, hey? Yeah. Check this out. See what the title says? Stoked. It's going to be awesome. Guys, what is up? Give me a shout out if you're here, if you can hear me, if everything's working good. I haven't live streamed for a couple weeks now, but now I am. What is up, guys? How are you doing? Is there anybody out there? Can you hear me? Is anybody alive? Hey, neighbor. Hey. Hey, whoa. They changed the way that Facebook messages work. I know. Can you believe that? It's been, since I've had what I could call an actual layout, it's been 20 years. Yeah, had a couple little layouts, small little layouts, but it's been 20 years. I'm pretty excited about that. So I know it's a little late, but I'm slowly rearranging my workbench so I could start building the layout. So I took everything off the back wall and I plastered it. Well, put the second coat of joint compound on it. Going to sand it. I'm going to, hopefully maybe by tomorrow, I'm going to start painting a backdrop on it. It's just going to be sky though. But it's going to be probably 12 or 14 feet long. And the backdrop will be, I think, about 24 inches tall. So I'm going to start painting it. I was looking at paint tonight. Once that's painted, I'm going to start building the bench work. So that is going to be killer. I can't wait to do that. It's going to be really, really awesome. Let's see. What do we got going on? Who's all here? Anybody here? We got 7 people watching. Well, that's better than no people watching, I guess. So I have a good idea how the layout's going to work. It's going to be plenty of shelf layout. Yeah. You know, so that's one thing I wanted to ask anybody that was listening tonight. Do you, what if you have a shelf layout or you have an around the wall layout, something that's up against the wall, what is your depth of your layout? Is it, I'm thinking a good reaching depth for me is 24 inches. Maybe if I have a stool, I could get back there a little bit deeper. And also, what is the height of your bench work? What's the base height of your bench work? I am going to put mine at 50 inches off the floor, I think. I'm going to have my workbench underneath my layout, and I'm sitting right now looking and going, you know, that's going to probably hit me right about here. So it might not be the best height. I might have to go a little higher. Seems pretty tall. So, Michael, yours is 2 foot. Yeah, I mean, I think a standard is kind of like 2 feet, 24-inch depth. I would like to maybe, I don't want to go any deeper than that. I know that in the harbor area, I have to have a bunch of depth because I'm going to have the underwater scenes that are actually going to be happening underneath the surface of the harbor. I need probably about 8 inches. Where my workbench is right now, if I brought it down 8 inches, the bottom of the harbor would be about right here. So I don't think that's that good of an idea. I might have to move my workbench off to the left about 8 feet or so. If it's there, that'll work pretty well. But I was also contemplating, should I build the layout in here in the garage or should I build my shed? Now, the idea with the shed is I wanted to do something that looks basically like a small version of Walt Disney's Carolwood barn that he used for his Carolwood Railroad in Beverly Hills. It's currently now at the Live Steamers, LA Live Steamers in Griffith Park. I think that would be really cool, but then I'd have to wait until I built that thing And lumber prices are so crazy right now. I'd have to wait till I built that before I could start building the layout. And I really want to build the layout. The other option is I make it so I can take it off the wall and move it in there at a later date. So I think I'm going to make it a little bit modular, where I have a kind of a ledger that I can screw into the wall, and then I'll screw into that, and I can take it apart. But that means I need to put seams in it. So, and the seam would probably be right in the middle of the harbor, and I don't want that. So I really got to think about this. I got to plan it out. Let's see. I'm going to read some of the, some of the answers here. Shelf layout is 20 inches deep and 50 foot tall. I use IKEA. You know, I was thinking that. The Ivar shelving, I have seen a lot of people use that, and I think that's a really good idea. The problem is, close to IKEA, I'd have to go down to Burbank or drive up to San Francisco. And we're right in the middle of both of them. It's probably about 3.5 hours to either of them. I don't really want to order it. But it is cheap. I don't know. How much does a section of Ivar cost right now? I haven't looked. Whoa, Mark, you have a triple-decker layout? That's crazy. I know a lot of people double-deckers, triple-deckers. Wow. 22-inch depth on the lower level and 15-inch on the middle and upper tier. That's cool. Like that. What's your layout room size, Mark? Dennis, 55 inches right now, which is totally doable. 24 inches deep. I'm only 5'11", so you're similar height to me. But I don't know if I could reach. I'd have to have something to step up on. Must have short arms. Mark's 31, 48, and 63 high. Holy crap. That one's got to be pretty shallow, that top layer. $10 per upright section or shelf. That's it? The lumber prices have not hit IKEA yet, I guess. Holy cow. That's really, really, really cheap. We got to look at that. I need about 14 feet. 14 feet at 2 foot of depth. I was thinking about doing something so I cantilever the layout where there's no down supports. I have a shelf above that I could actually hook it to, but I don't really want any supports between the front of the shelf that's above my head and the layout front. I already have brackets that are going to be in the way. Kind of a pain in the ass, but I'm going to leave them there anyway. I'll paint them out or edit them out of pictures. I'll paint them like sky blue. I'm going to put a bunch of clouds in like Jason Judson was doing in his recent video. 13 foot by 17. Mark, that's... What's 13 by 17 and a half? What are you talking about? 13 foot by 17. Oh, the room. I'm sorry. Your room is 13 by 17 and a half. Yeah, but you have 3 levels, so it's not that small. It's like a good sized bedroom, basically. Yeah, not that small. Did you guys see this I posted? So that's that live edge that I was doing. It's not great, but it's kind of neat. You got a 5.5 foot helix between the lower and the middle levels, and switchbacks. You have switchbacks. Are you narrow gauge? Or are you standard gauge? Are you? Yeah, what scale and are you narrow gauge? If you have switchbacks. So what I did was I just took a bunch of this really thin 16th inch basswood strips, and I just took my X-Acto knife and moved it back and forth as I was cutting through the strips, and just made it wavy to do the standard logging. So it's standard gauge, but it's logging, so switchback's very common. Is it like Sierras, or where are you logging? So that's kind of logging related. This is going to be from a swamp. So I didn't work any on this today. That was yesterday. I went and actually delivered the hotel that I've had for 3 years. Finally delivered it to its owner, finally, gave me a ton of room. Ton of room is subjective, of course. Ton of room for me, another 6 feet with nothing on it. Cool. Gave me a place to start. It wasn't the only reason. I needed to push myself to get that thing done. I was never going to start a layout before I got that thing out of here. It was taking up too much room, and believe me, I was hearing it. The layout's going to take up room, but stock alert. The layout was going to take a lot of room, but at least that project is out of the way, right? So, HON3, mark your HO, Little River Railroad in the Smokies. Oh, that's cool. Smoky Mountain Logging Railroad. So it's like hardwoods. I guess probably not tons and tons. Is there a lot of pine trees in Smoky Mountains? It's mostly hardwoods, right? Man, I know there's pine trees, but is it like Maine and Pacific Northwest or the Sierras, which is all pine trees? Wayman, yeah, man. Talking about the layout, I'm pretty stoked. I mean, I really feel like I got somewhere by getting that damn hotel done, getting it out of here. The customer super stoked. He loved it. So I'm really excited about that. That's really, really cool. Mostly hardwoods. That's really, really cool. Where's it going? The layout? It just went to a customer's place. He built a F scale, basically a little bit larger than G scale, same size track. It's like a narrow gauge logging layout. He built one in his place on the coast, and I built him other stuff for. He builds railroads and he builds wine caves and puts railroads in people's wine caves. So I built stuff for these wine caves, but he built a layout at his house, and it's huge. It's G scale or F scale, which is instead of 32nd scale, it's 20.3 scale. So the people are big. The hotel's a little underscale for it, but when you get to over 4 feet wide and like 24 inches deep, you can't go bigger than that. You can't move it. I got a Jeep. I don't have anything huge to move it in. I'm not going to put it in a pickup truck and drive it, 2 hours to the coast. So it's pretty cool. Dude, I saw your tagged cars. That's awesome. Very, very cool. Looking good. Oh, Lynn, thanks, man. I appreciate it. It could have went way, way, way farther. I really could have got into it. But, of course, I wasn't going to weather it up really at all. I did use a lot of layers, so I got that kind of modulation. Not really modulation, but just like I have on this, where it's not solid colors. There's a lot of kind of layers just to give it some depth. Like even on the canopies, I didn't want them solid colors, so I kind of washed them with different colors so they weren't so flat. And man, there were so many things I saw in that I could have done better, but I had to get it out of here. It had to be done. I just couldn't stand seeing it anymore. I've been working on it in the house we were before this one. I was working on it, so it's been like 3 years. I probably started on that thing in 2021. God, it was probably like it's probably somewhere in 2018. I mean, it was a long time ago. So, I did mean your layout. The layout? No, I haven't. I'm going to start on the layout. So what I did was I took the stuff I had hanging on the back wall here behind my workbench. There's a couple reasons I'm doing that. As you guys probably know, Jason Jensen and I, we started a podcast. We've done 2 episodes. We are going to turn that into a monthly podcast. So, and we might do it more than that. It's going to be just kind of weathering based, kind of like what we're doing right now. But we picked up some sponsors. So we're going to have a little bit more professional sets. His is good. It's good to go. I am turning this into a layout, and then I'm actually going to do a thing where the cameras in the mic swing around, and I believe my bench is going to be in front of me because I guess we're going to film the podcast. I don't know if we're going to initially. I don't know if we're going to put that up as filmed, but I'm going to make this more like a set and use my my bench is actually part of the set. So that'd be pretty cool. I'm actually really excited about it. There's a lot going on in that world, so it's going to be neat to see what happens. Of course, I talked to Todd, and I said, "Todd, it's okay if we do this? You're not going to get mad?" He said, "Yeah, do it, man. It's cool." He said, "We're done. Do it. Make it happen." So we're going to make it happen. What's the triple J's or something like that? Right now it's called Crazy Double J's. So if you go to Apple Podcasts, if you go to Spotify, I think Amazon, every place, every major podcast streaming site, it's there. It's called Crazy Double J's. So if you look it up, Crazy Double J''S Weathering Podcast. So everyone, there's 2 episodes right now. We'll do the 3rd episode. After we do that 3rd episode, then we'll start the monthly series. That is going to be sponsored by Ammo, which is cool. I don't know if I was supposed to say that yet, but I just did. It's also, whoa, I got rabbits walking in my garage. Whoa, that is crazy. I'm not kidding. There's 2 rabbits that just cruised into my garage. Rabbits, what are you doing? Go back home. They're my girls' rabbits. They don't cruise in the garage. That's weird. Passing the torch, Wiley's Double J's. Yeah, you know what's funny is before they ever announced that they were done, Todd was talking to Jason and I, and he said something about passing the torch, and Jason and I were like, what the heck was he talking about, passing the torch? And then like a week later, 2 weeks later, they announced that. What's going on? Yeah, we get lizards too. Yep, we get lizards. I have 2 rabbits cruising in my garage. And I can hear my oldest daughter's playing Star Wars Battlefront. So I know she's not paying attention to her rabbits that she likes to leave outside. And they tend to escape. They dig under the fence and they get out in the street. And the other day I had to run all the way down the street, which is probably like, I don't know, a quarter of a mile, to chase these damn rabbits back to the house. And the girls finally came out. I had to chase the rabbits, so I couldn't go in and get them or I'd lose the rabbits. So, long story short, we got the rabbits back in the house, and here they are out again. It's all fenced in, but I made this big long boardwalk beside the house. They get underneath the boardwalk, and then they dig their way underneath the fence and out. Scorpions. Don't get scorpions, but when we were at the Palazzo a couple months ago installing the panic room, the escape room, out of the blue. Now, this is on the 3rd story at the Palazzo. In the hallway, there was a bark scorpion just cruising down the hallway. We caught it. I guess they do occasionally get in the hotels, but it's super rare on the Strip. So who knows how it got in there. It must have got in with something we carried in. Really, really weird. Wow. So anyway, guys, I should just catch these rabbits. They keep jumping in the door. I have the door open here, the man door, just to get some air in here because it's pretty hot. And they just keep coming in and exploring and going back out and coming in and exploring. Stupid rabbits. Tricks are for kids. So you guys got anything else you want to talk about? Layout height, 50 inches. Depth, probably 24, right? I'm going to have a cool underwater scene on it. That I'm really stoked about. I'm going to have a beach, like a tropical beach, something you don't see very often. There's going to be a ton of foliage, like green plants. There's going to be a swamp with a bunch of vines, mangrove around parts of the swamp. but there's also going to be, like I say, a lot of like banana leaves, very greenery. That's why all my stuff's wet. It looks like it's all moldy and musty. It's because it's damp. It's supposed to be really, really damp in this area. So, it's on an island. So I'm stoked because I'm going to do a lot of stuff you don't see modeled very often. I'm going to do the shacks up on stilts in the swamp. A lot of big trees, like almost like cypress kind of trees, big tall trees, really dark, spooky kind of swamp look. The trees probably will go up to the valance, up to the top of where the lights are, and then that kind of spreads out into a harbor. And there's going to be a forced perspective, kind of like really clean sandy beach along the back. Fresno's still a swamp. What area am I going to model? Well, do you have a track plan in mind yet? Or will the structures drive the track plan? Let's see. First thing is, a long time ago, Fresno was a swamp. What era? Good question. This is supposed to be on another planet. So since it's on another planet, I wouldn't say the era is the same era as we have here on Earth. Probably 50s. I think it's supposed to be 50s. I think the idea, the story, if you haven't heard the story, is there's a set of islands that are kind of like the Bahamas. Very low-lying islands. But they are off about 4,000 miles off of the mainland, whatever that mainland is. Okay? So this is huge group of low-lying islands. Some of the islands are swampy with kind of mangrove swamps that kind of where the land gets a little bit higher and a little bit drier, and there's big swampy trees, kind of like almost like the bayou. And then that on the other side, that same island, there's a harbor. And on that harbor, there is a very large, almost like volcanic rock. That is one of the only dry land areas in this whole archipelago of islands. And we're talking, this is a huge place, but there's very, very shallow harbors. Okay, very shallow areas in between a lot of sandbars and whatnot. This happens to be a deeper harbor. It's still not exceptionally deep. The big ships can't get to it. Okay? So if you picture swamp on one side, kind of like a big volcanic rock on the other side, people have lived in the swampy area. There's natives, and they kind of live in these almost like swamp shacks. And at one time where the rock or the volcanic rock is, that was populated thousands of years ago by people that I would say were like the Romans. So there's some Roman ruins in there, but those people haven't lived there for years. Well, story passed down that they lived there because there was a type of fish that they used to fish there. How the Romans got 4,000 miles across the sea, I don't know. They're just smarter Romans than what lived here, I guess. I don't know. And so 4,000 miles across the sea is this place. The Romans got there a couple thousand years ago. They eventually, they were fishing these fish. The fish went away. Come 2,000 years later, there's some native people that live there. And lo and behold, billions upon billions of these fish show up again out of nowhere. Right? Well, not quite. I don't want to do a volcano. I'm not that cheesy. Volcanic rock would be cool. So billions of these fish show up. Well, the thing is, these fish are venomous, but they're also an amazing, insanely good delicacy, and that's why these Roman people came there. Everybody, every race, every color, every creed, every nationality, they taste these things and they love them. I mean, they're fantastic. They're the best tasting fish since goldfish crackers. I mean, they're amazing, right? So this big corporation goes and says, hey, we're going to set up shop. It's very far away. It's going to take a lot of money, but we're going to set up a corporation and we're going to ship all these people to harvest these fish. So we're going We're going to not only fish the fish, but on this volcanic island, we're going to set up a town. We're going to pack these fish. We're going to do whatever we need to do to harvest them. We're going to ship them back to the mainland so the rest of the world can have the fish. At the same time, now that company was called DirtSpot.7. Okay? At the same time, they also found oil right on the sandbars. They found oil, and a company called Crumb Oil, which is a little bit related to DirtSpot.7, Crumb Oil came and started drilling for this oil. And it was like an oil boom. There were oil rigs everywhere out in the water, and there were ships, and they were catching fish, and so they had to bring in people. So these people, there was no really place to live except on barges, and they built houses and housing and small ancillary type businesses up in this place that they called Bergen. So the little swamp shack town that had been there forever was called Burl. And they had always been able to catch a few pawkfish here and there. The fish are called pawkfish. So they learned that, they were venomous, and they learned how to treat the venom. But there was never that many of them. So there was never any commercial fishing. Well, then they just appeared out of nowhere. So here's this town. Well, these guys, they're fishing them like crazy. And there's plenty to go around. No problem at all. They're not running out or anything. Same thing with the oil. And then one year, out of the blue, all the fish, the pawkfish, disappear. They go from billions, schools of billions and billions of pawkfish, down to nothing. And the same thing happens to the oil. The oil runs out. So these corporations are going, well, we're not going to stay here. There's nothing here for us. So they call up their executives. Hey, get on the boat. Get your people that are important on the boat. But what do? They leave 20,000 people behind to fend for themselves on this island. So there's enough resources there. There's enough fish. Not a lot of pawkfish, but there's enough fish. There's enough area to grow plants, coconuts, things like that. They live in a beautiful area, but these people are trapped there. There's no way. There's no way you're going to get across 4,000 miles of water, open water, right? So, and nobody else really cares because these corporations control everything. So these big companies control everything. They leave these people there basically to rot, but they left them all of Bergen. So this port of Bergen is full of all these people, all these buildings. So they have to make do with what they got. So that's why a couple of the buildings, there's like little homeless tents up on the top. So these people that there's no business really to speak of. They're left there. Then there's the people that live in Burl in the swamp across the way. They've always been very kind and they work with people. But there is only so much to go around. So you got this big group of people. Are they going to fight the people from Burl? I don't know. But there is, amongst all this, there's also a little railroad. It's a standard gauge railroad that ran out to the very deep water ports. And that's how, once they got the fish, they'd ship them back into the only place where there was dry land, Bergen, right? This railroad ran through Burl, and then they processed the fish. They'd either stick them on little freighter ships, like little paddle wheelers that could get out to the big ships. Very small freighters, not things that could cross the open water, or they'd stick them on this railroad. And this railroad is one of these little low-lying trestle-bent railroads, like that goes through the Florida Keys. It's just above the water, and that thing cruised out to deep water. So there's railroad still there, right? That is used for, hell, I don't know what yet, but it's this really rinky-dink kind of make-do railroad that's there. And it goes through the swamp, connects Bergen. It runs down to the ports at Bergen. It ran to the docks. Still runs for whatever reason they need it to transport something or other. Not anything that anybody on the mainland needs. These guys are just using it to survive. There's tons of half-empty barrels of oil laying around. There's, old oil pipes. So one of their little businesses is finding all these oil drums and draining them into bigger drums, selling it off to other people that live there so they can maybe fuel their homes, selling it to the people in Burl. So there's a lot of things going on. But basically these people were abandoned. So they had a somewhat of a modern town, let's say in an era that's like 1925 or so, 1935. Come 1950, 1955, completely abandoned there. They had to figure out how to survive. So a lot of everything's kind of shoddy. Obviously there's some sunken ships in Bergen Harbor. There's going to be some barges that people are living on because that's really some of the only area where you can live. It's all make do. So you're going to see things about fishing because some people still fish, but it's not really enough to get them anywhere. It's going to be I'm really excited about it because not only is it going to be things you don't see modeled very often, like a tropical area, right? Kind of overgrown, almost like a Brazil, almost like favelas in Brazil, where they see the houses stacked up on top of one another. But we're going to have a lot of like 30s, like American Depression type things, like you see in the layouts that a lot of us build. But then you're also going to see swamps, and you're going to see this make-do kind of railroad, and you're going to see like a beautiful beach, May not be perfect because there's probably a lot of waste around from these oil companies, maybe old rusty pipes running along the ground and stuff. But it's going to be, I'm really excited about it. I think it could be a really cool story. This will be a layout that's also composed kind of like Jason Jensen's, where it's for photography. So I'm going to do a lot with composition. The track plan, it's going to be like a switching layout. So it's going to be able to be operated. There's going to be basically like where the layout runs out to deep water. So that the railroad would be called the Bergen, Burl, and Deepwater. I changed it. It was going to be the Amherst, Bergen, and Burl, but it was just too much like other railroad names. So Bergen, Burl, and Deepwater will be the name of the railroad. The layout will be called DirtSpot.7. So now you guys know what DirtSpot.7 is all about. New Orleans, Cuba, Caribbean, kind of all mashed up. Yep. Swamps, Pawkfish, and a railroad. Yeah. Pawkfish. They're ugly things, but man, they taste good. Don't get bit by one because they're venomous. So you'd have to go over to Burl and get a pawkfish shot or something, some kind of mush they make up that you take so you don't get sick. Sugar cane could be something. A lot of salt water though, so I don't know, how well sugar cane would grow. Very low lying. Not a lot of big open areas, like I say, mangrove swamp. I'm pretty excited about it. I think it's going to be really fun. And I think there's a lot of stories that can be told. But I'm also really interested in those types of terrains and what I can do with that kind of stuff that you just don't see. You don't see a lot of tropical layouts other than people doing like Hawaii. And there's, you are seeing like some Brazilian stuff and some Indian stuff, which is really cool. But it's then kind of juxtaposed with like almost this American architecture. So it's going to be really interesting. You don't see tropical plants in on the Franklin in South Manchester, but you're going to on this. So I'm very, very excited about it. I posted the other day like what I thought one of the rail cars would look like. It looks like a Diffco dump site hopper with a little cab up on the front. They call it a Larry. I just love it. They actually made them in my hometown. And so I just think it's really cool looking. Plus, I made them in my hometown. My dad used to work at that factory. YouTube. What about YouTube? Am I going to put this on YouTube? Since I'm telling the story, maybe? Is that what you mean, Ron? Let's see, sugarcane. I'm trying to look at what you guys were saying. So sorry. San Pedro, Long Beach, Pawfish. No, Pawkfish. 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 Hydrogen power. Any sketches are going? There is a sketch. I don't know what I did with it though. It's not very good. What length are you looking at? Dennis, if you're still listening, it's going to be about 14 feet for now. It's going to run, basically could run off the end of the layout. So you got on my right-hand side, as you're looking at the layout, you're going to have the swamp with Burl, the swamp town, kind of swamp port. Then you're going to have kind of in the center, you're going to have Bergen Harbor. Near the back of the swamp, off to the right, and kind of to the center of the layout, you're going to see the beach. It's going to be like a really nice, long, forced perspective tropical beach. And then you're going to see forced perspective once again, kind of rock coming out off that beach. And that's going to grow into what becomes Bergen Harbor, which is going to be a kind of a typical kind of, I don't want to get too typical, but it's going to be kind of like your typical kind of cellulose, Jason Jensen looking kind of harbor, just, believe it or not, more run down. And then that's going to go up a hill, which would be part of the volcanic mountain. And the buildings I'm building are going to be going up that hill. The latest one I did, which was the DirtSpot sludge plant, it's going to be high up on that hill. That's the Foz scale. That's the Foz scale Atlas Gorge building. That's going to be, because of the tower on that's going to be one of the higher buildings on there. And there's also going to be that lighthouse I built. That's going to be on a rock, kind of off of Bergen Harbor. And I want to have really small, really tight winding roads, a la kind of like Malcolm Furlow did when he was doing his Denver and Rio Chama, where they have the switchbacks on the roads, and how he had the Old West buildings, kind of like that. I want to be able to look down a road and have the buildings kind of turn, so block your view so you don't see the backdrop. And I want people to be able to go, oh, what's around that corner down there? You know, what's back around these buildings? So some of the buildings are going to be where you can see both sides. They're going to be finished all the way around, like most people do. I usually don't, so it's kind of weird for me. But I want the roads to also have forced perspective, so it draws your eye to the back of the road. You follow the road, and there's side streets that come off, and you see little shops. Once again, forced perspective, so I'm going to do them very small scale. And I really want to pack as much depth as I can into a really small space, and I'm really going to try to do it really, really well. So it looks like this mountain, this village on this mountain is a hell of a lot deeper than what it really is. And I want it to fool your eye even when you're standing here looking at it. I don't want it to just be for photos. I want you to stand here and go, oh shit, I can't believe how shallow this really is. I want it to look a lot deeper. It's going to be a challenge, but I think I can make it happen. I'm going to look farther here on your comments, guys. Thanks for chiming in, so I'm not here talking to myself. Way you're describing it sounds more like Cuba. I mean, yeah, kind of, but it's very small, much more like the Bahamas, very, very shallow. So you can't get big ships in. You got to bring the big ships out to, miles out to the deep water before you can load. So that's what the railroad's for. Yeah, I can upload this to YouTube. But I mean, that's pretty much what the idea is for the DirtSpot layout. DirtSpot.7 is actually the name of a mine on the ON30 layout I did, the micro layout. And that's supposed to be, 100 years ago. And that company then grew into a big, huge corporation, become DirtSpot.7. They got involved with, mining, lumber, timber, all that stuff, fishing, commodities. They got involved with fishing. This became, this great thing. And then I've also tied in my old layout, the Wiscasset, Trevino, and Western. So the ships, the whole idea is these ships, they get loaded up with Pawkfish. Guess where they go? They get offloaded in Trevino at Trevino Harbor. So I've taken my old HO layout, the Wiscasset, Trevino, and Western, and which is kind of like a Boston, once again, kind of like a Franklin South Manchester that was also in the 50s. And the story is that back in the day, that's where they used to bring the Pawkfish to unload after they cruised 4,000 miles across the ocean. So I figured, why don't I tie that layout into it too? So that's also part of the story. You still need way in the very back an extinct volcano. I'm okay with. I think that would be fun. I just don't want one that's got like lava and stuff like that. But extinct, like cinder cone or anything like that would be cool. I want a lot of what look like volcanic rock with tropical greens growing all over it. I'm totally fine with that. I think that'd be great. Anyway, that's the story of DirtSpot.7 and how it, I guess, slightly ties in with my old layout. And this new railroad that I'm going to be calling the layout is going to be called the DirtSpot.7. And the railroad on that layout is the Bergen, Burl, and Deepwater. If you're wondering where Bergen and Burl came from, the street I live on is called Bergen. Where that name came from, I have no idea. It's like the name of the bad guys in the movie Trolls, spelled a little bit differently. Burl is the next street over. And Burl's cool, Burl Wood, Burl Ives, but Burl Wood, so it's a great name for the swamp. Those guys live in the trees. So, yeah, no problem. That's cool. I appreciate you guys listening to it. That's it. So tomorrow I'm going to be working on this layout area a little bit more. I'm going to get a backdrop painted. I really like the idea of storm clouds. So over by the swamp, over by Burl, I think I'm going to do like some thunderheads, some gray sky. I really like that. A lot of people have been doing that. I really, really dig it. And then over by, there's going to be a lot of, mountain. It's going to be really high. Sorry, rabbits are making crazy noises. The mountains are going to go up high, but I think that bright blue sky with big fluffy clouds, and then it's, I think, going to go into gray, stormy skies, which will be fun to paint. I'm going to have a blast. I love painting clouds, so I'm going to have a blast doing that. So, extinct volcano could be painted on the backdrop. Yes, I will tie some of the mountain back into the backdrop. I don't want to make the island look too big, though. That's what I got to be careful with, because the whole idea is that there's only a very small space that's dry land that could be populated. So this whole town is stuff stacked on top of stuff. That's one thing. When I get my buildings in, then I could start building buildings that stack on top of other buildings. That's the idea, is that everything is just crammed. If it's too big of an island, they could spread stuff out. I need a story as to why is everything packed on top of everything else. It's because they didn't have a lot of room, but this is the only room they had. I'm also going to have, I built the aqueduct where they're living under the arches. I built that, one of my first buildings I built for this layout. I'm going to have some kind of what looked like a little bit of Roman ruins, and they kind of built around those. Not much, just a few, like a couple columns that have collapsed, just kind of remnants of these Roman people. I don't know what they're going to be called, probably Romans, that they live there, because that's also something you don't see on layouts. I think it'd be really cool to tie that in, because it's a great part of the story that they too at one time had found Pawkfish. Pawkfish disappeared and they just left. There was no reason to stay there. Maybe sunken in the very bottom of the harbor, there's going to be part of an old Roman ship or something. I don't know. Professor and Marianne, a little bit more. I said a little bit more advanced than Gilligan's Island, but once the people got left there, it's kind of like that. You could go 30 deep or 30 instead of 24 to get more depth for scenery. I could, but I like the challenge of having a shallow area and making it look deeper. And I did reach, and it's going to be hard to do. The way I want to build my stuff, I'm going to build a lot of it on the layout, and I don't want to have to reach over very far. But I do like the idea of having a really, really challenging mental challenge, and how am I going to make that look deep? I'm really excited about that. I guess that's the weirdo artist in me, I guess. All right, guys. I'm going to get the hell out of here because it's been 45 minutes. Thank you for chiming in. Thank you for, listening. Remember, Jason and I are going to start doing a monthly podcast. Crazy Double J's Weathering Podcast. Maybe called that. I don't know. We'll figure it out. I'm really excited to do that. We're going to start that soon. We got one more episode to film of to record of our mini-series. And then we'll start on the monthly podcast. I'm making it a goal. I don't know if I'm going to do it, but I'm making a goal to get Malcolm Furlow somehow I'm going to interview him. If I have to drive to Taos, New Mexico, I'm going to find him and I'm going to interview him. So maybe when I go out to Jerome and do the Dave Meek podcast, maybe I'll just keep on going out to Taos. It's like 4 or 5 hours farther, and go find Malcolm. I may have a way to get a hold of him. So that'll be cool. I'll talk to you guys later. Thank you for listening to me ramble. I will talk to you guys all soon. All right? Goodbye.